Hi everyone, today we're tackling the quiet killer of growth in professional services, the margin ceiling. This is when you add people to your team, you add hours of billable work, and you add clients, and your profit barely budges. Why? What is going on here? How do you fix it without turning yourself into a full-blown software company? I'm Ross-Munro. I'm the founder and CEO of Sourcetoad. And for the last 17 years, we've specialized in helping service companies, mainly professional service companies like us, turn their expertise into recurring revenue using technology. And so we're going to talk about how consultants and CPAs and interior designers and lawyers and investment bankers and environmental engineers have all used these easy rules to start making money while they sleep. I'm going to break this up into 4 sections for you. First, we're going to address the elephant in the room about service businesses like yours and mine. And then I'm going to talk to you about how technology today is making this a solvable problem. Next, we'll give you 3 easy and practical moves that you can start working on today to increase your margins. And finally, we're going to talk about the payoff, like what happens when you get this right, and how do we start small? Okay, let's talk about the problem. Most service firms live off, 5 to 15% margins, and that's if they're good and lucky. Maybe they get to 20. And that's because that their revenue is typically tied to human work hours. When your billable hours stop, revenue stops. Your costs rise with headcount, so growth is always really slow. And if you want to hit higher margins, or even just be like a little bit more resilient as an organization, you have to grow to a pretty large scale. Meanwhile, if we look across the office park, we'll see some product companies out there with the build once, sell many model, and where almost every new customer costs nothing to serve, especially technology companies. Those guys are enjoying 50 to 80% margins and sometimes higher. And I know the grass isn't always greener on the other side. This does not seem super fair, especially to me, because I run a professional services company in technology for the last, 17 years now. Here's the big idea, moving on. And it's not that complicated. It's just act more like a product company. I'm not talking about writing a book or launching an app in the next 60 days or starting a training course or something like that. What I'm saying is that you need to treat your expertise like repeatable intellectual property. Take those repeatable parts of your process and expertise and think about how you can turn them into something that you can build once and sell many. And so how do you do this? Well, I think there are 3 simple steps that we use with our clients to get started. So step 1, anything that is busy work and is manual, you need to stop. If you have a task that is predictable and frequent, then a machine should be doing it. I'll give you an example. If you have consultants copying and pasting data into templates, or analysts who are reformatting the same boring 12 charts over and over again, or you got managers who are chasing clients for missing details for the report, like some cat chasing one of those laser pointer things, you need to make a list of those things. You want to automate or digitize these things. And that probably looks like your client completing some sort of guided form, or a file that they send to you that is then validated by some sort of AI tool. Or it might even be something that I use every day, which is an AI agent that drafts my reports in my layout and my voice. And these are tiny little wins that can have a big impact. If you could take your client intake and the formatting form from 3 hours of work down to, 15 minutes, then you will have cut a ton of drag from your process, right? But you've also created a centralized system for that process to live in. And if you want to now change a process, you have to change the system. And we all know that if you centralize these things, it will create consistency and adherence, which is so important in scaling professional services businesses or any service business, right? You might even want to create a franchise one day. You have to have a playbook of how you do this stuff. Okay, so let's move on to step 2, which I call productizing your process. Our saying here is that if you can describe it, you can package it. But what the hell does that mean? Okay, let's look at some examples of like signals that will show you that you're ready to start productizing what you can describe. Like if you have a signature audit that you do for clients, probably something that can be automated. If you have a standard deliverable that you give to them at the end of phase 1 of your engagements, that can be a signal. Or if you offer, a step-by-step playbook that never quite changes, but the names and the dates of the clients change, that's something that can be worked on. And there are 2 really easy formats that I like to start with here. The first one is if you have some sort of like digital assessment. This is where you go online, you fill out a form, and it gives you an instant score. Now what we can do is we can add a list of like prioritized actions based on that score that your team can review and that can be handed over to the client in a report. I personally love automated report generators, which is a little nerdy, I know, but this is where you take like your framework or your thinking or your like the book you've written or your process, and you add your client's data to it in some sort of probably large language model AI system, and it spits out a consistent deliverable. And if you build these small systems, they can create really, really rapid repeatability. And repeatability drastically lowers the cost per engagement. And we all know as well that consistency raises perceived quality and value. So you want to stop just reinventing the wheel every time you have an engagement. Rather, you want to like package up the wheel, like stamp your logo on it and ship it off to the client with hopefully the click of a button. I think that metaphor works. All right, so the final step in these kind of moves you can make today section is that you should be using AI as a force multiplier. A lot of the things that I have discussed today wouldn't have even been possible like 2 years ago. A lot of the fuzzy or detailed report writing type of stuff, that kind of thinking was just not something computers could do. And now they're mostly really good at it. These systems can like be fed the hundreds of hours of work that you have previously outputted, and they can reproduce it when you now give them the right inputs. And you can build these systems in a way that the processes and the way that the AI works and everything still belongs to you and you alone. I'll give you a few examples of things like this that we've worked on with clients in these like early stages. So recently we built some small systems that take discovery calls and record them when you're on that discovery call with a client. And then they pull out a summary of that using AI. And then a workflow goes and takes those into certain steps and puts them into the proposal and generates the entire proposal from the transcript in like 3 minutes. Another thing we've done recently is we've made these things that draft like a first pass analysis from structured data inputted by the client. This is when the client was given like a form and they have to, or a spreadsheet, and then that was combined with a workflow tool and an AI system, and it actually outputted an entire structured report that could then be sent to the analysts and to the client as well. And then we've also set up some automations which I love this one because I've done this for myself, which generate this kind of like personalized on-brand like recommendation that our clients experts then refine. So this is their brand voice, the way they do their work, etc., and a whole bunch of client inputs, and then it spits out this like basically perfect personalized report for them. This stuff is not magic. It obviously needs some guardrails around it, especially like to keep your tone, to set your boundaries, make sure it doesn't hallucinate, and you also still want to review the outputs. But AI can kind of accelerate that first like 80% of the workload, and so that you and your team can work on that final 20% of perfection. So let's move on. Walked you through what some of the basic first steps are, but what is the final payoff? What happens when you get this stuff right? In my experience, you'll see three things happen pretty quickly. Number one is margins are just going to expand, which is, I think, the most important one. You're just going to be spending less time on setup and formatting, and that means that you can focus more on like high billable insight work. And you can provide some of the automated parts as well of your delivery now as fixed fee. And you can now have a hybrid model of time and materials and fixed fee work for the automated stuff. And this can drastically improve both your margins and your client intake, because you might want to automate all those client intake pieces. Number two is that you will also find, I think, that your delivery accelerates as well. So you'll have faster turnarounds, and typically that, in my world, means happier clients. And it also means that I have more capacity so that you can do more work without adding any additional headcount. And the third thing that I found personally is that your teams will just like breathe easier. They're going to be faced with less of that like grind work, and they'll feel like they have more meaning, and quality will actually climb, and you'll see turnover go down as a result. And so you can call this leverage, which is like my least favorite business jargon word after like synergy, or you can call it compounding. Just don't call it optional, because if you're not working on this for your business, I guarantee you that one of your competitors is. So where do you even start? You don't need to have a platform on like day one. You probably just need a pilot. The easiest thing to do is to start mapping out your delivery process from end to end. That means taking a big red pen, or green, I like green, and you circle all the boring bits that you do every week, or the places where the work gets stuck the most in your pipeline. Then I want you to score each item on impact, confidence, and ease on a scale of 1 through 5. I'll tell you what those mean in a second. You take the number one thing that has the largest impact to your business, that is the easiest to do, and that you are the most confident that you will be able to pull it off, and then you should do it. Try and ship your first tiny win in about 30 days, like make it an intake wizard or an auto-generated report or some sort of AI thing that summarizes client calls, and then move on to the next red circle on your list. And you start stacking these small wins, and I promise you in like 6 months, it's going to look suspiciously like you have a product. And at this point, you have my blessing to name the thing. Breaking the margin ceiling is not about working harder. It's about changing the physics of delivery, moving from that custom every single time model to repeatable most of the time model. Build once, sell many. Keep the human parts human, and I promise you this will be fun. If you want someone to like help you out with the automated bits, feel free to reach out to me. I've done this hundreds of times over the last 17 years, and it never gets old, and it's always still fun. Thank you for listening. Let's build something great together.